Okay, so the question, I guess, was, does art successfully work as some form of therapy? Yeah, I think so, because my understanding of therapy is what they're trying to do is break you out of loops of behavior that tend to be habitual and tend to be non-productive.
I do know that as I create art, these things are coming out of me and I'm able to release them.
That's kind of the point, especially of talk therapy, is to get those thoughts and, those non-productive patterns to be broken by doing something different.
What happens is that I never really obsessed about them, but they're out of me. And it allows me to move forward, to move on. When I was a kid, I had a number of visions, hallucinations, I guess you would call them. I think they were mostly fever-induced. They were just so vivid and they were repetitious. There were these visions and nightmares. I don't think I was a really sickly kid, but I just remember a few times waking up in the middle of the night and seeing these really strange visions. Some of them involved these really short, troll-like beings going into and coming out of my closet. Another was when I looked, for whatever reason, I woke up in the middle of the night, looked in the backyard, and saw this woman, long dark hair. I would have those dreams off and on throughout the years, and later when I was maybe 12 or 13, I remember I got kind of sick, took some medicine, and those dreams came back to me under the influence of whatever drugs, prescription drugs or what over-the-counter drugs that my mom gave me for whatever I was going through, and those dreams came back.
All right, as far as somebody working through any kind of conditions that they're stuck in, like clinical depression, through their art, makes sense to me, because then you're kind of eliminating the middleman. The therapist is supposed to facilitate you looking at what you're doing and then coming up with a different way of viewing habitual behavior so you can go on and actually progress rather than be stuck in that Groundhog Day sort of feedback loop. So art, expressive art, where someone is actually making an effort to express something inside of themselves, even if it's an obviously depressed individual like Van Gogh, how would he be if he had not ventured into that avenue of expressing himself? If he just kept that inside, for one thing, we wouldn't have the benefit of his art, because he probably would have checked out a lot earlier, and he just would have been some schmo staring at people out in the fields knocking down wheat with a scythe.
I don't know if it's because I am a creative person and I have such a vivid imagination, but in the late 80s when I was in college and hanging out with some crazy friends and experimenting with drugs, including LSD, I really saw some crazy shit. I saw some things that were disturbing, and it's like this distorted sense of reality, what's real and what's not. And I remember the first time I tried LSD, I looked at these trees and they were just swaying back and forth, and I had seen stuff like that on TV and movies before, but when you experience it firsthand, that's really something. I didn't do well with it. I ended up being the one who had to be babysat. I got to the point that I realized that it just wasn't for me. It was too much. I didn't want to go down a really dark path.
Like Cory, working through his clinical depression and drug use through expressing himself with therapy. Great way to break through barriers and insulating yourself from change because the pain is too great to deal with your version of reality, and trying to anesthetize yourself and get to the point where you can get through another day in an altered form. Instead of doing that, being creative, expressing yourself, humanity benefits as a result of the individual benefiting. Very, very powerful stuff. Big medicine.
I do know that as I create art, these things are coming out of me and I'm able to release them. What happens is that I never really obsessed about them, but they're out of me. And it allows me to move forward, to move on.
If you work through the things that are holding you back through art, you're really doing two things simultaneously. You're expressing what your status quo is at the time, but in addition, you're moving yourself along, hopefully, so that you can progress beyond that, kind of like Mystery Science Theater 3000. You get through one door and there's another.
So art making has kind of become almost this secret that I discovered on my own, almost accidentally, that has truly transformed my life.
When you make those quantum leaps in your own personal development, you may not get to the point where you're going to make sense to everybody who's talking to you on the street, and you may never have completely broken away from depression or anxiety or whatever it is, whatever demons are chasing you. But I think were it not for self-expression and having to work to get that expression out, you'd be static. And one of the signs of life is self-motivated motion.
I think the main sources of inspiration that I have, many times they are from dreams that I have when I'm sleeping, and sometimes nightmares, visions and experiences that I have in dreams. And sometimes they're terrible and really frightening.
Everybody that's involved benefits. So I think art is a tremendous way to get through being stuck in a pattern of behavior that's non-productive.
But when I get those images onto a canvas, I guess it's a cliche, I don't know, but it's this exorcism.
Healing is about taking a step in another direction. It's about having the courage to open your eyes to different possibilities and different perspectives. And once you do that and change your perspective, you can change your reality and you can change the world around you, or at least how you perceive it. And that alone is therapy.
There's a lot of different avenues that I like to go through. Maybe I'm trying to avoid getting really good at any of them, but I mess around with oil paint, drawing, caricature, and I do a lot with music. You are not acting in a way that's already preordained, but you're being spontaneous.
The very act of creation is art. It doesn't matter what you're creating, just taking an idea and bringing it into the physical realm is the nature of art. It's finding a way to express what you're thinking.
I know that I need to keep creating art in some form, in some way. I'll find a way to keep doing it because I'm dependent on it. That's why I truly believe that as long as I'm able-bodied and I have the resources, I will continue making art.
Anytime you participate in creation, it opens your mind to possibilities, allowing a shift of perception. If you change your perception, you can change the outcome of your world.
I had my very first art show in June of 2011 at a yoga studio. And I remember I worked on the pieces and the subject matter was flying insects for whatever reason. And I remember thinking before the show, please just let me sell a painting so I don't look like a big loser.
And a lot of artists are very self-effacing in that, is that they won't necessarily express themselves that well in a conversation, but once they start doing what they do, you can see what their universe is.
And I ended up selling 8 paintings that night, and so I got the bug then, no pun intended. So from there, I just kept going, and I'm the kind of person, I just put it out there, whatever it is. My point of view, my opinions, now my art, and I'm just not shy about it for whatever reason.
It's tremendously therapeutic because there are very, very few people that I know that write, play music, dance, paint, that ever give it up.
I feel pretty lucky. How many people get to make money off of their therapy?
It's got to hit you here. It's got to resonate with you and give you some sort of an emotional response. And the queer thing is, it may not be the exact emotion that the artist was feeling when they put the piece together.
Art, much like therapy, is a conversation between two people, the artist and the observer.
As opposed to representational pieces that I create, I do a painting of Bigfoot coming out of a flying saucer, or I do a painting of my friend's dog that ran away so I can give it to my friend and help her feel better about it.
Art allows the artist and the observer to fill whatever void they have in them. They're able to take, the artist takes his emotion and what he's thinking and his perception of the world around him, and he puts it on the canvas, or he molds it, or he builds it, or he writes it. The observer takes that art, views it, and takes what they need from it.
Abstract art, which I'm working on lately quite a bit, experimenting with. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know, there's no plan. I just start working and exploring feelings and forms and colors, and the meaning reveals itself to me as I work on it.
And it always brings you back to that emotion that you find significant. That's a wonderful means to an end, and I think it just enhances your life. Okay, when it was in 2005, my wife and I went to Argentina in a failed attempt to learn Spanish. I didn't know at the time that Spanish in Argentina is almost like a patois language, so it wasn't a real good idea for me learning Spanish down there and then coming back here because people are looking at me like, did you have a head injury? You know, it just didn't work out so well.
I think that art overall is tremendously important, and it's, as a former teacher, you know, I was always saddened by the lack of funding for the arts in education.
But there was a gallery for local artists, essentially the same as what we're doing here with First Friday, but this was people that were really, really scrabbling. This guy did this piece on a piece of leather. And what it is he took indigenous art from all through Central and South America, and he carved it into this to make up the shape of Central and South America. And like I say, the guy essentially was a street artist. I don't think he did sign it. His name is Ramirez. I would not know the guy if he was standing in back of the shaky cam right now.
Part of the reason that art is so important, it's not just about nice pictures or moving images. It's not just about technical ability, talent, skills. It's communication. As a good friend of mine, Moji, says, also an artist, art is communication.
But it just knocked me out because this was really from the guy's heart, and it's just such a weird piece. It just really, it moved me to see that somebody would do something like that.
As someone who sort of accidentally discovered art making and its therapeutic value and the way that it has truly transformed my life, it almost feels like this secret that I discovered that I want to let people know about.
It just brings you to a different place, to a different time, to a different state of mind. And that act alone flips the way you're thinking. If you're in a negative thought pattern and you see something that brings back a positive memory, chances are you're going to flip to that positive thought pattern. That alone is therapy.
I guess it's kind of like having the canary or the pigeon in a mine, you know, letting you know what's coming next before, you know, the general populace can figure out what's going on.
I see so much pain and suffering in the world, especially these days, and I really think if more people got involved in something creative in any form, to any degree, that they would benefit from it the way that I have. Maybe not to such a degree, maybe more, who knows?
People that just can't help expressing themselves artistically when they don't have to do something that has to be realistic or truly representational, if they're just representing something that's inside of them that they have to let out, I tend to think that they're going to be the bellwether of what's going to happen in the future.
But just, you know, pick up those crayons or markers and just start creating something. Don't try to necessarily make it look right or real. It's not about that. It's about expressing something and getting it out of you. And that's really what my art has been about. I haven't tried to impress anyone by creating hyper-realistic images. It has truly been about getting this crazy stuff that's inside me, getting it out, putting it out into the world.
When they're just trying to get themselves discovered and they're just trying to chisel out a reputation for themselves, there's not that many avenues that they have. And there's always that big debate as to whether I'm going to go And you can say disparaging comments if you want about it, but it's a valid concern. How am I going to make a living at this versus how am I going to express what's in my heart and in my mind and these weird daydreams that I have? How am I going to slap that on a canvas or make it into 3 dimensions or however you're going to do it? And so the people that were recruited had ways that they were expressing themselves. There's nothing within the focus of your camera right now that's going to show it, but a lot of the works that we had were done by people that are tattoo artists. Now, there's easier means that you can have as far as doing artwork than doing tattoos. It's a very creative venture, but you're limited by time, you're limited by the size of the area you're using, and certainly you're limited by the fact that it's extremely painful, even if you're really, really drunk.
There are times when I'll paint something because there's something I need to express, and I'll get it down on the canvas, and I might even like the way it comes out. But eventually I might paint over it because it's done.
That situation leads these people that are artists that are using that medium of doing tattooing to maybe want to do something else. And we talked to some of these folks, and what they said is, we get together on a regular basis, about weekly, and we'll throw out a medium. We're going to do charcoal this week, we're going to do acrylics, or we're going to use pastels, whatever we're going to do. But they want to work on something that's not moving and screaming, and they're not predestined because somebody's coming in and I really want to say happy birthday Leroy on my upper arm or something like this.
It's not necessarily about the product, the finished product. It's about the process that I went through to get there. Art making has truly changed my life.
He had to do it because he hadn't anything else to do except to do it.
Sometimes we can convey information through images in a more effective way than we can through words, especially in this day and age when so many people are on their devices all the time. People have a very short attention span. I'm noticing it more and more when I talk to people. I sense their attention waning, and I almost feel as though I'm keeping them from their phone. They want to check their text messages, emails, social media, whatnot. So it's almost as though we have less and less time for verbal communication. It's this weird kind of almost happy place for me. It allows me to move forward, to move on, to welcome new dreams. And I kind of like that feeling. That's a feeling that I seek out. And now as an adult, I have dreams that I hardly ever have nightmares anymore. And I really attribute that to the fact that I create art. I want to be connected and close to the people that I love and my home, but I need to find a way to get away from it all too pretty easily. And art allows me to do that. And I get these things out of me, whatever they are. I had a lot of nightmares as a kid, a lot. It just doesn't happen anymore. I just go into those worlds that I create for myself. Creating art has been incredibly therapeutic to me.